used to go over and ask my father for a nickel to go uptown and buy some candy, and we were so hard up that he didn't give us a nickel. And that's the main thing I remember about the Depression. But even in the Depression, as I remember, my folks were good providers. We were never without anything if we really needed it.
How old were you when the Great Depression started?
1916, 26, 29, 13 years old. I was a freshman in high school. Well, my father owned his own business. He was a blacksmith. He had his own blacksmith shop. And I think my mother at that time was secretary to the municipal electric plant there in Guthrie Center. And later she was secretary to a couple of lawyers. So my folks were always busy. And we got all of 25 cents a week allowance. And one time we boys got in trouble and broke some windows out. Until Dad got enough money from our allowance to pay for putting the windows in, we didn't get any allowance. So that was our punishment for breaking out the windows in a competitor's blacksmith shop. It only cost $99 a year to go to college. And look what it costs now. Well, if we wanted to swim, we went down to the South Coon River and tried to find deep enough water to swim. The older boys would throw us younger boys in and say, swim or drown. We must have swam because here I am. These kids now don't know how lucky they are that they have these swimming pools and everything. Like that new aquatic center we got in the park now. It's fantastic. Kids don't have to go down the water in the mud in the river like we did. At night we'd roller skate around town. We call it chalk the arrow. We'd chalk on the sidewalk, have two groups. One group would go out and make these arrows and then hide. It'd like hide and seek. The other team would come and follow the arrows and try to find us where we hid. That was a lot of fun. In wintertime we did a lot of sliding, a lot of ice skating. In high school, I played basketball and football and track. In college, I played 1 year of football and 4 years of basketball and track. I lettered in basketball and track at Iowa University. I was very fortunate. Ronald Reagan was announcer for WHO at that time. And he was down that week to broadcast the football game, and he was out there our practice, and the coach sent me over to kick and pass the ball with Ronald Reagan, who was our future president. Felt well honored. And Niall Kinnick and his roommate Hobbs lived across the hall in 190. And I played a lot of cribbage with Niall Kinnick. Several times I went over to visit him and knock on the door and he'd say, come in, and he'd be sitting there squatted with a catcher's mitt on like he was catching the ball and everything. He was really dedicated to his sports activities. Another time I went and knocked on the door and he said, come in, and he had a bat and he was practiced batting in there.
Oh my.
I watched the guy they had pole vaulting. He wasn't doing very good. I went to Coach Brachenham and I told him, I said, I used to pole vault in high school. Maybe I could do all right here, and that's how I got started. So I finally did pole vault 13.6 with a bamboo pole. Boy, I'd sure like to try one of these fiber poles now.
What was your favorite sport?
Would have to be basketball.
Why basketball?
Well, it seemed as though I had the skill to find where the basket was. One time we were playing semi-pro ball and we was playing the Globetrotters, and I got hot out there about where the three-point line is now.
Mm-hmm.
The Globetrotters soon shut me off.
Did they?
Yeah, but I couldn't miss. I got reassigned to Pecos, Texas as basic air training, where they trained basic flight training. And when I reported there, the commanding officer of the squadron I was assigned to sent a corporal over to interview me. He said, "What do you like to do when you get out of the service, if you get out?" I said, "I'd like to have an automotive supply store. We got just the place for you," and that's how I got into Air Corps Supply. And I had a crew that I was in charge of inventory. I had a crew of four fellows that would go out and actually count the parts that we had for airplanes. They'd bring them back into me, and I'd type up a report, cardexes, and they'd be couriered down to Manila and put in a South Pacific card system. That way, if some outfit in the Pacific needed a certain part, they'd check there first. And if they had it, they didn't have to send clear back to the United States to get it. And we didn't land in open. It took us about 60 days. We sat in Ulithi Harbor waiting on a convoy to take us into Okinawa. Finally we got one, and that night before we were supposed to go ashore, I got appendicitis, and they took my appendix out on board ship.
Oh.
The next morning they lowered me over the side in one of those baskets, took me into a field hospital. I hitchhiked from this hospital back down to my outfit, which is just outside of Naha capital. And things got better from there on. My inventory bunch, inventorying down there, and they found a bunch of air mattresses. So I typed up a sheet to requisition 12 air mattresses, so all our cots would be made up the same. So when the officers come around inspecting, the cots would all be alike, and we got away with that. We had air mattresses on our Army cots. My 4 years enlistment was up. I got an honorable discharge.
How did you meet your wife, Lucille?
I was a mechanic at the Ford garage, and one day Lucille and her mother were walking across the street down the sidewalk. That's the first time I'd seen her. I guess my heart jumped out. I thought, boy, who's that gal? So I found out who she was, and at that time I was playing semi-pro ball out to M&M, and Lucille's brother Frank Brady was pitching. And I said, "Frank," I said, "you get your sister to come over to your place and visit, and we'll come out, and I'll come out and we'll play catch." Good excuse to meet her. So that's how I got together with Lucille.
What was your favorite memory?
I got so many, honey, I wouldn't classify any one. I've had a beautiful life. To start the overhand jump shot,
Yeah.
I went to Iowa, and Coach Brashenham made me set shoot. He didn't think that a proper shot. Now that's all they shoot. I'm surprised you got that much out of me.
Yeah.